Tushar, so good having you. Thanks so much for taking the time out. Normally I start off by asking you what you feel about the series. Right now I want to ask you, what do you feel about the next 5 or 7 trading sessions, simply because November 9th is a key verdict which could have maybe a 3 to 5% move or impact on the markets as well.
Sure. So I think obviously such events are always difficult to call, given the huge, the enormity of elections in India and, the entire spread out phase over which this is conducted. But I think given the way the market reaction has been over the last week to 10 days, ever since the elections, about the second phase kind of got underway, looks like that the market's pricing in a bit of a negative surprise on this, so which would mean that a potential defeat of the Modi-led government. So having said that, I think where we are trading right now, the 8,000, 8,050 odd level, the risk on the 9th, when markets open up after the election results, could be more on the upside. So if there is a potential positive showing, if they manage to form the government with over 122 seats comfortably and all of that, you could potentially see a move on the upside. However, if that were not to be the verdict of the elections and the BJP government lost versus the Grand Alliance, my sense is you would see some kind of a negative reaction, but that could be the extent of reaction on the downside could possibly be more tepid than the upside reaction, because I think the market's now beginning to favor in a negative surprise.
So, Tushar, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are the chances that Nifty could actually go back and retest the August lows?
So basically we're talking about the 75, 7600 levels.
That's right.
I don't think there are triggers, in the immediate short term. So I won't think the November series would probably see that level. If 1 to 10, maybe about 1.5 to 2.
Assuming if we don't come out on the right side of the Bihar election verdict, you still feel confident that we will not go back to the recent lows?
Yes, because like I said, I think the markets are beginning to get, are beginning to accept that as a potential reality. So when the actual numbers come, you could probably see a spike in and then, recovery from there. But even there, I don't think we are going to see a 400-point move.
That's good to hear. But Tushar, what could support the markets, considering, it's all getting so stock specific within the sector as well, especially the way markets are reacting to earnings nowadays? What part of the market do you think is going to hold through?
I think right now the only thing which is working on the downside is really technical supports. We've got fairly strong supports, both around the 8,000 level, around the 7,800, 7,820 odd level. And, unless of a global, a global sharp move down for whatever reason, suppose out of the blue Fed were to come and start hiking rates or whatever, you don't know what the global economies are going to be doing. I think on the downside, it's really the technical supports. We've seen a lot of negatives beginning to get absorbed, right? The earnings are fairly disappointing so far. You are beginning to see downgrades across the board, and markets are kind of, taking that in their stride right now. Like I said, I think the outcome of the Bihar election on the negative side seems to be getting priced in. I think if you talk to a lot of market participants, people do think that the negative surprise on the elections is probably beginning to get priced in. The third event, potentially, which everyone is talking about in November, is the inclusion of the China ADRs on the MSCI indices, so which does have an impact on fund flows. I think that's also again a known fact. So the downside events are fairly well known, well articulated, and the fact that we are seeing that kind of support coming in, I think gives you a lot of confidence.
Tushar, not for the day, maybe not for the week, but for the month, what could be a good trading idea? One line on it, why?
So I think where we are trading right now, on the upside, I would probably start to trade some banks. We've got all the public sector banks yet to report, but I'm closely looking at SBI at the current levels to start building up some long positions ahead of the earnings.
So, what are you doing with some of these banks which had a massive move either direction? I mean, yesterday there are a couple of small names in the FNO space which moved around quite a bit. I mean, OBC, the OI was up 41% and the stock did very well. And on the flip side, we of course had IOB, wherein massive short positions built up as well. And I'm sure there are a bunch of others. What has caught your eye in the banking space?
So I think, the mid-cap banking space is big, the public sector mid-cap banking space is now beginning to, so to say, differentiate with respect to, guys who are beginning to mend their books, if I may call it that, versus, stories where problems continue to mend. So, let's say IOB is a name that you kind of indicated, I think shorts there continue to hold swing even through the rollovers. Last week we saw that there was fairly aggressive rolling up of the short positions into names like IOB, Bank of Baroda to that extent, PNB as well. Whereas some of the other ones, OBC, Syndicate Bank, there does seem to be the fact that shorts are now gradually beginning to end. While OBC open interest definitely shows higher, I don't think it's really sustainable long positions which are coming through. It's just that some of these smaller banks are beginning to see their sustainable funding shorts coming out and just some trading buys being initiated. But overall, we are beginning to see a fact that some of these banks like BOB, IOB, PNB continue to see sustained short positions, while on the others, maybe some positions are being cut.
Tushar, talking about Tata Motors, not talking about the new brand ambassador for PV, but just the fact that the kind of steep climb the stock has seen from sub 300 levels, where do you see Tata Motors headed in the near term?
So I think, obviously, things with Tata Motors is that it was a fairly well-owned stock. All these years, it's had a stellar performance. Every fund worth its name, every trader worth his salt was long on Tata Motors in their core portfolios. And then over the last 3 months, suddenly the story seemed to have taken shine away. And, we've seen the stock correct almost 50% from the highs there. Currently, given where the stock is trading, I think it's probably now, we've discussed this in the past on your show as well. I think now it's probably beginning to see some kind of a fair level of trading again, where the exuberance about the JLR business is beginning to vanish away. But obviously, the concerns on the India business continue to stay. To my mind, Tata Motors is now beginning to get into a sideways moving range. After having run up fairly well over the last couple of years, and then the last few months having seen that correction, 410 odd seems to be fairly a level which probably might be difficult to surmount for this stock, and on the downside maybe about 360 is something which could be a strong support. So it's now going to start moving into a sideways range bound kind of a fashion, notwithstanding the new brand ambassador.
Lots of stocks are at a 52-week high, and again we can cut across sectors. Maharashtra scooters, something which we don't discuss on a daily basis, but yes, that one is sitting at a 52-week high. Then you've got Intellect Design. That stock honestly is following a different orbit irrespective of what is happening to the market. On a daily basis, the stock is adding 2-3%. Then you've got Dalmia Bharat Sugar, it's a sugar company, 72 rupees for that one. And Garware Waldrop. So lots of interesting names, where genuine businesses are strong, they are really hitting a 52-week high right now. Tushar, for this quarter, when I say this quarter, October to December quarter, what could be a broad Nifty range, and what will take what could be the next trigger for Nifty to take it above that historical range of 8,000 to 8,400?
I think the next trigger clearly is going to be the winter session of the parliament, locally, we are, we do expect, irrespective of what the outcome in the Bihar election is, I think the market is getting restless for some kind of progress on the legislative front. And if we see another washout like the monsoon session, that's going to be fairly negative. So progress on the legislative front in the winter session of Parliament, I think if you look at until the December time frame, that's the one big key trigger. The other key trigger is obviously going to be around the US Fed rate hikes. In the recent meeting, consensus seems to be going back that, Fed was a little hawkish, and, from what seemed to be a March 16 event, could outside chance be a December 15 event also. So I think that's the other big event to kind of look out locally. So these two things is what could probably, get the markets out. I call it like a 7,800 to 8,400 range. A positive development on the legislative front locally could, propel us maybe back again to the 8,800 odd levels. And, obviously an out-of-turn Fed event could probably get us lower to about 7,600, 7,500.
Tushar, so good chatting with you. Right. Thanks so much for taking the time out and speaking with us today.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.